Hey guys, I think actually the mic's on. I decided to stream like maybe 3 seconds before I hit the button. So don't expect a full show today. What a terrible way to start the show. This is more off the cuff, I should say. On that note, good morning, tribe. Good morning, Hugh. On that, the audio is good, right? You guys can hear me okay? I bet you can. There we go. Yeah. Let me know if you can't. Do you guys know God's name? Do you know God's name? And if so, why? If you know God's name, why? What? I want you to think about what it means to give God a name. At first, you might think that that it's atrocious that he does not have a name. I'm using he here. I think the polarity of what we think of God shifts from male to female through time, and right now we're the androgynous is flipping. The polarity's flipping rather quick, and I bet you that God will be considered female here. Shit, it might actually be androgynous. People might actually start seeing it that way. I'm getting way off topic here. The moment you name something is the moment you create a boundary between you and it. You giving something a name, which is necessary. I'm not here to say things shouldn't have names. You giving something a name is your establishment that they are a separate person, thing, noun, verb, however you want to look at it. And we don't realize the power of that. It's a beautiful power. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't mind if you want to call God a name. I don't mind. But last year, someone got so mad at me because they demanded that I tell them the name of my God, and I couldn't do it. I didn't have the electricity then to even understand why I couldn't do it. They wanted me to say it was Yahweh. They were waiting to pierce me or to stone me if I did not say Yahweh. It was I demand the password is what that was. I demand you give me a password. And if you do not give me the password, I'm going to stone you. And the reason why I could not say Yahweh is because Yahweh is a very, very interesting personality. And when you look at the true personality of Lord, the Old Testament Lord, it doesn't sound possible that could be God. Number one, there were 35 deities wandering around the world at that time. They were so formidable that the Lord himself was afraid. The Lord himself was jealous and vengeful about anyone who would call or worship any of these other corporations. I mean, these other deities. There was a war on the bull. It was a war on the grove. It was a war on the Asherah. It was a war on Pan. And Lord won that war. The Lord won that war. And that Lord, we think, has a name called Yahweh, and if you do not, or Jehovah, and if you do not say that is his name, you will be stoned, you will be persecuted. But when you go back to the text, Moses asked Lord, hey man, I'm getting ready to go tell them fuckers that they can't do this, they can't do this, they can't do this, they can't do that, and I don't know. Yeah, my hair, Sorry. My I really should think about these things before. I hope you guys are okay with that. But it's a free show. Fuck y'all. If you don't want it, go away. That's it. You don't have to even look at me. You could be doing dishes. You could be putting together that carburetor. You could be looking up what the fuck's a carburetor. Yeah. That when Moses said, Lord, I'm getting ready to go tell them all that they can't do this, they can't do this, that they have to unsubscribe from this ball corporation, deity. And I who do I tell them sent me? Who do I say you are? What the fuck are you? Who are you? What do I call you? That's what Moses said. And the Lord did not give him a name. He didn't. The Lord said, I am that which I am. I am what I am, Popeye. The first words of the Lord in the Old Testament were what Popeye said. I am what I am. I am what I am. And if you think that's sacrilegious, don't be such a prude. Go away. Because that's what he said. And if you look at the true meaning of that, he's expressing to Moses that I am. I am what I am. I will always be that which I am. And the interpretations are varying about if it's I am what I am or I am that which I am. But that the heart of it is I am. And that heart of that word is actually Greek, meaning ego. Ego. That the Lord, who was jealous and vengeful, was the burning, toroidal energy of I am, of ego. That name separates Moses from Lord and separates the Lord from its people. The same way Moses is separate from his brother, the same way you are separate from your brethren, from your tribe. Your name is your field. It is your psychic, etheric, shared address. It's your IP address, but it's for your sigil understanding. And you need that because you were among others like you. You were in a collective of some sort, a unanimous fantasy. You could call this world a unanimous fantasy. And in this fantasy, it's very easy to picture how terrifying people would find being in a soup that's just pure fantasy. In fact, it's so terrifying that you notice that people come out of the desert. They haven't eaten in 40 days. They have gutted a snake and figured out a way to wrap it around a stick, and they're carrying it through the village. You have people that are laying by the side of the road that are shitting in their own pants, telling you about prophecy. You have a world where in the streets of Rome, young Jewish boys are putting their genitals on the table, rolling dice, collecting money for who doesn't flinch as they cut each other. You have a world where people are getting so high from near-death experiences like drowning, from visions through fasting, and from the constant throbbing promise that there's coming a Messiah. There's going to be 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 a Messiah. And Messiah is simply a Jewish word for the anointed one, the one who will come, who will lift all of this up, who will lift us all away. And that's a field too. That belief is a field state. That is how competing factions try and rule tribe. Contrary to popular belief, Rome was actually pretty cool with whatever you wanted to believe. And they noticed right away the cult problem that was running through their streets. The genital cutting, the constant looking for a Messiah. Rome didn't even have capital punishment in the same kind of rule set. And that these cults, these religious cults, would send their enemies, would send their martyrs to Rome, demanding that Rome be the punisher for them. And Rome, trying to keep its peace, Rome wasn't even organized in a way where structure was even a possibility. That Rome was ruled more by influence than it was by structure or bureaucracy. Now, you might see those as being the same thing, but back then they were very different. The reason why so many emperors were wanting to be deified is purely for survival. That you were surrounded by cults within cults within cults. And you notice that the ones that win aren't the ones that are true. They're not the ones that are real. They're ones that dilate the followers the most. The ones that stir up enough energy, enough action, like a churning, turning toroidal I am in the desert. That has so much energy, it's literally glowing. And to see something glow that much before electricity would look like a burning bush. This pillarous cloud of light could only be perceived through the retinas, through the amygdala that has a resolution that didn't involve wireless, didn't involve batteries, didn't involve electricity. Involved no such thing, no such structure. When you're surrounded by that world, people tend to freak out. They do things. They're also very prone to believe. You see that now. You see that right now. And that most of the game that you saw through Rome was people pretending to be blind, people pretending to have leprosy. And when I say pretend, I'm going to take that back. I'm going to reel it back a little bit. I'm talking about the victimhood. See, that's really bad language, James. People were using the victimhood as a survival mechanism. Rome had tiers. It had steps. And we like to shame and shit on slavery, but Rome was the most upwardly mobile society we've ever seen. And it was built on slavery. Slavery didn't have this shame quotient to it because it was more honest. In fact, as you went from slave, you could buy your freedom. Your freedom could be given to you. Your freedom could be inherited. So you go from slave to free man. And then from there, the free man chooses to become a citizen. And when that free man becomes a citizen, that citizen is no longer, is never, I should say, a single individual. That citizen is still inside the praetor familius of his original master. And it's not even slavery. It's tribe. It's houseship. That the owner needed the slave to liberate himself so that that new liberated person could own things, could sign contracts, could make agreements, could build their own wealth. whether it's running a port, whether it's running a franchise operation, that structure, the patriarchy of Rome, I haven't found a better system than that. I realize I wasn't there, but if you look at the upward mobile nature of that, you see something good, not bad. But we had a different look. We had a different take on slavery back then. We couldn't afford the luxury of pretending that we didn't want to be slaves. That's really it. And when you name God, you cease to be him. God becomes something that's not you, and it's subtle. And you'll say, no, James, it's not. I can name. But if you really look at the definition of name, I'm talking about the intrinsic word name, and what it's like to be that Nell character who's never had any language in the world. And in your mind, you would give this tree life. You would give it a name because you could come visit the tree. You would miss the tree and you would embrace the tree. You would miss the tree, you would embrace the tree. While you were gone from the tree, that name, and that name could be a vision, it could be a sigil. She could picture that tree, is the pranic holder of what is gone, of what is not with you right now, but remains in the presence of your prana. And we do that to God, the same reasons, the same technology is why Moses said, "What is your name? What am I going to tell these people you are?" We have had the concept of soul since ancient Greece. You have a soul, you have a soul, you have a soul. That tree has a soul. No, wait, that tree doesn't have a soul. The dog has a soul. No, that dog doesn't have a soul. Okay, the dog has a soul. We'll give you that because my wife's freaking out. But the tree doesn't have a soul. Okay, fine. Tree no soul, dog soul. And you enter this genital cutting ceremony where people are deciding who has a soul and who doesn't have a soul. That is the naming of God. Because you're naming what has life. And you never catch yourself removing what doesn't. You never catch yourself doing that. Never. The whore of Babylon has a word written on her forehead. And it's mystery. And we rape the whore of Babylon because mystery scares the piss out of us. And I'm not saying it shouldn't. That fear is the dilation of resolution. That your 1920 by 1080 display is too 4K. It is too much 4K. You will not even imagine looking at the truth through 8K. It is far, far too high resolution for you. That you prefer the 800 by 600 view. It has more mystery. It has more comfort. It offers you the release, but you're still in the fantasy. Those people that wanted me to name God were immediately called me an evil Satanist because I would not say Yahweh. But I can't say that Yahweh is God because that would put him separate from me. And the reason why I can't put him separate from me is simply because I know how electricity works now. That's all. And that back in the time when it was a 4K, when it was a 4 pixel by 3 pixel display, way back then, I would need things like soul. I would need things like names. I would need these things to try and brace myself from the genital cutting, from the angry villagers, from the people screaming because you didn't think something or you didn't say that God had this certain name. It takes you back. I can afford the electricity to see. So can you. But it's still scary. You're still worried. And that's part of the field. It's part of you growing as an individual. It's part of you becoming a flower. Think about how vulnerable the petal is. Think about how the stamina of a flower is just fully exposed. The softest, most precious bits of what it is are riding on the forecastle of their ship. They're at the very, very, very front. The softest, most delicate parts have their nose right in the wind. It's a completely different way of seeing things. And we only have that resolution because we understand transistors. Yeah. That the reason why we have something called a soul is because when the word soul came, we didn't have something called a radio. That we weren't able to open a radio up and discover that, wait, this radio has no soul. But that's impossible. There's talking. There was talking before you tore it apart. There was talking. Where is the talking? Where did it go? And you're trying to explain. This is just, it's not just. This is a string of copper wrapped in a harmonic labyrinth circle with just the right ratio that when you place a needle on top of that antenna at a certain point, that you are now perceiving a coil of a certain distance with a certain winding ratio that therefore interprets a certain signal. And your DNA does exactly the same thing. It's a coiled signal that's picking up a transmission. And that transmission is coming in on a specific frequency. Your DNA is a frequency. And there is no soul. There is no soul. There is frequency. And the radio can break. And when it does, there's no antenna. The antenna stops working. Does the signal stop? Who knows? You would need to construct another DNA frequency. You would need a child of the one who's broken. Does that child pick up a frequency? It's the same coil. It's from the same lineage. That's why our salt and our oil are hereditary. We're able to read from the same hard drive. We have the same encryption. When you hear me say you don't have a soul, that's got to freak some of you out. It'll freak you out the same way it freaks someone out when you say God doesn't have a name. And it's because now that you understand how a radio works, you no longer need a soul. In fact, the soul was helping you stay distant from God because you were able to Rene Descartes your entire body, turn it into an anatomical machine that had this pneuma, this psyche, this effervescent spirit living inside you, and that spirit would then go away when you die, that would be necessary before you understood the concept of a radio. You got to stay with me on this. I know it's freaking you some out, but I'm about to bring you even closer to God than you could ever imagine. But you have to take off the soul. You have to take it off. Just rip it off for a sec. Feel what it's like to not have a soul. Just feel it. Because you first think now you're cut off. You first think now you're satanic. You first think now I'm just all material, but none of that's fucking true. Because the only reason why you had to believe in material is because you gave God a name and separated yourself from him. that the reason why the radio is a magical item to the caveman is because he's never seen the transmission tower. He's never seen the person behind the microphone speaking into it. He's unable to comprehend how that works. All he sees is copper wire. And because he cannot understand that explanation, he has to create a soul that's not from this place, that's separate from this dry, empty world. And that belief carries him through thousands of years, and it works. This is William James. This is American philosophy. It's called pragmatism, utilitarianism. The truth is what simply works. And as you start to unwrap that gown, and it feels weird, you start to realize, holy fuck, I don't have a soul. I'm inside a soul. I am a soul. I am a complete embodiment. I am in this unanimous fantasy, this soul, this whole place. This whole place is God. And that will get you strung up on a tree. It'll get you burned at the stake. It'll get you thrown into a prison. It'll get your knees buckled. It'll get bamboo shoved up your fingernails. It'll get your family raped. It'll get your house burned. And that shows you, it shows you how far we have come as a people. That yeah, we still witch burn now. We still witch hunt now. But the needles, the bullets, the spears have gotten tinier and tinier and tinier. And it takes more of the Pied Piper to stir us up. The resolution is slowly being revealed to you about what you are, and technology is the deacon. That technology is a 1,000-year-old sermon that's been delivered to you piece by piece, knowing that at any moment you're going to freak out and go cut your kid's genitals and put them on a stick and run through the village with them on fire. We know that's possible. Don't look at me that way. We've seen you do it. Your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather did it too. You freaked the fuck out because someone didn't say that Gajingagay was betrothed to Gajigabay, and therefore the Bakingafay is not able to bless your cheese right now. Don't tell me that didn't happen, because it did. And it happened that way because our apertures are just freaking the fuck out over the idea that we are part of a unanimous fantasy, a unanimous conglomerate fantasy of existence. And the materialism that we see is the ground, the surface of cohesion that develops from mutual fantasy. That you and I envision the ground, and your power of envisioning is so strong that it becomes it. And over time, through ancestral, unanimous fantasy, things that were never solid, things that were always vibration, were rendered in our eyes as solid walls, as solid skin, as mystery protected by vista. By vista. We put limitations on everything we see to stop us from freaking out. Many of your friends, some of you, see the world as an enclosed ball. That enclosure gives you security because you think everything's figured out. And that all 33 zones in this world give you security because the different flags from different countries are able to give your belief strength in numbers. That you can imagine that God cannot see you, that God cannot hear you, only because there's this country that you live in called America that you pay taxes for, and they went to war with a country called Russia, and both of them are claiming that the moon is walkable. Both of them are claiming that they have satellites, that they have nuclear weapons, that there's little tiny microscopic space bears on the ISS solar panels. That having that mutual flags, the mutual countries with different languages agreeing on the same thing is exactly what you need. I mean, you, a collective human, need to not freak out. We as a society have planted 2 towers for the sole purpose of helping people not freak the fuck out. And those 2 towers don't have to be true. They simply have to ground people in 2 different notions. They need to ground them in something that's thick enough that the person feels completely under its spell, which is a pacifier. It's sucking the thumb. The 2 towers are 2 thumbs, and you can suck on either one. And they will stay as long as you keep looking at that as evil. They will remain as long as you keep witch hunting, you meaning the collective us, as long as we keep witch hunting because they're there. These are requirements in this world. We would not have been able to advance as much as we had we not have all the scientism. Guys, there are people right now that if they would have heard me say what I said about the soul, have already reported this video to YouTube, have already gone to my blog and left 7 comments just since we started, explaining clearly how evil and fucked up I am. And that is civilized. Yes. And that's only been civilized because we've had so many Pied Pipers for so long saying, who here wants to kill anyone who doesn't have the right name for God? It's like, we do. Great. Come here. This guillotine is safe and effective. War is a cleansing. You know, you clean silver, you put it in that solution, you got a sonic, sending out sonic vibrations. And that sonic vibrations removes the corrosion from what's pure. The reason why I can't call Yahweh God is because Yahweh is one of those poles. And if you look at him as one of those poles, you see very clearly, damn, it's a very effective pole. In fact, you see him constantly testing man for corrosion, obedience. Old Testament. Hey, I want you to kill your son. If you love me, you'd kill your son. That's not a measure of whether or not he is obedient. That's a measure on whether or not his obedience is based on fear. See? The sensei raises the litmus. The student never sees what the litmus ever was. The sensei gives the student an opportunity to bow out. The sensei gives the student the opportunity to carve his own path. The sensei does not condemn. The sensei places the test. In fact, the Lord even went so far as to stop. Hey, you don't need to kill your son. You don't need to. Oh, look at this goat. Got caught right here. What an amazing thing. Kill that instead. You might think that the Lord was proud of that, and I'm here to tell you the Lord's like, fuck. Ugh, God, got too much obedience. Damn. Man, that's not human. I don't want a fucking human that's going to like slaughter his kid because I told him so. That's sick. But the lesson was worded where, hey, if that's your obedience, if that's where you're at, if you do want to kill your son because some dude who won't even give you his name, who won't show you an ID, says, hey man, I need you to kill your son today. That means A, you're not ready, but B, hey, live your life. Do what you got to do. You're watching the most amazing EQ test ever since Pharaoh. That's an EQ test. The Old Testament is an EQ. Right? Not IQ, EQ. Think of God as mother and think of Lord as sensei. And your mom is not going to take you out in the garage and beat the shit out of you. She's not going to put on boxing gloves, show you how to defend yourself. Don't make her do that. Stop asking her to do that. She's going to hire someone she trusts the most. She's going to hire her number 2 in command. She's going to say, I need you to be his teacher. And that person's like, well, if you want to be his teacher, we can't be like hanging out like this. It's not going to work. Look, I need this. I need this full kids, full on dilation when he's here. If he's coming to my dojo, he needs to have no clue if I'm on his side or not. And I'm going, okay. What if I just wipe his memory? Sensei's like, yeah, that'll work. That'll work. But you can't even pretend like you trust me. We need to set up something where I betray you. And God's like, well, that's silly. It's like, I know. It's so silly. But they'll believe it. They'll totally believe it. They'll believe that you, even though you're omniscient, even though you know everything, that I somehow could even betray you, A. And B, that I would rebel, which, how is that even possible? Like an omniscient, omnipotent being. Let's just tell them that I hate you. We'll tell them that I hate you. And despite every single story in the Bible, when God calls, Satan is there. They have discussions about it, right? They're like, yeah, Job, or he just likes you because you're good to him. Yeah, you take away all his farm, you take away his land, his cows, he'll fucking hate your guts. All right, go for it. Let's see. Let's test his faith. Let's see where he's at. You're watching a recipe. You're watching God open the oven with Sensei, with Satan, open the oven going, yeah, that's not done yet. Or, oh, that's way overdone. That's way too much. Theism was necessary for you to come out of that primordial materialism that allowed you to try and create inflammation from all the belief, from all the power. Theism is the idea that God is not here, that God is outside this world, that God has injected himself into this world. He's injected himself into this world and is given a vaccine, the Holy Spirit, that's only in certain places. Theism is the idea that the world itself is profane, but it is blessed in holy places. This is completely opposite of pantheism, where the world is sacred, where everything around you is sacred, unless you come and profane it. It's completely opposite. And when you live in a world where everything is profane, you are stuck saying, James, you have to repent and trust alone in Jesus. You can't trust yourself, James. You can't trust the Romans. You can't trust the church. You can't trust your own notions, James. James, you can't even trust what you and your heart feel. No, you have to repent. You have to give this up, James. Why? Because that freaks me out, says Humblescape. James, you are freaking me the fuck out. Here's $4.99. Stop it. Repent. You are making me uncomfortable. I cannot render the world at this kind of resolution because it means I'm going to have to be responsible for my beliefs. I want to trust alone. I want to trust alone another pole, the New Testament. The Old Testament is the pole of obedience. The New Testament is the pole of mercy. Joachim and Boaz. These allow you passage through the harbor. And there's nothing wrong with it. The depravity of man has no bottoms, nor does the opposite of that. What is the opposite? Depravity, the levity. The levity of man has no top. I'd say that too, Nebulous. Good point, though. These poles are an electrical gap. It's a spark gap. And the cross of mortality and morality, the living cross that's inside of you, is the spark gap. You are secreted across a chasm of morality. You have a lifeline. You know every day, whether you admit it or not, that you're dying. You know every day, whether you admit it or not, that you're living. That this morality pulls you up on a cross. Mortality. And in that time frame, you have a moral Y, an X and a Y. If you could think about your morality and your mortality, you can start to see how you can tune your frequency. That those cross dials are a frequency where you render the world your assemblage point. A radio has an assemblage point. That dial turns your radio to 66.6. I'm just going to go ahead and just dilate you all right now. It turns it to that frequency. And you can take it up to 77.7, to 88.8. You can move it wherever you want. But it's not as simple as a one dial, that it's both. And that's why as you age, you render your life differently. If this is your mortality, then your morality changes as you grow. It changes. This arc that you create is your identity because it's scribing yourself through time. You're scribing your life through time. Now, if you need the mooring rod, use it. Use it. And if you need to sink someone else's boat because they're not at your mooring rod, do it. Find out what happens. Find out why that lowers everyone's aperture and everyone's flower closes. Because when the witch hunters come to town and say, "Will you accept this as the Lord?" what's really happening is that everyone's unanimous fantasy is being suppressed by one person's nervous fear of something not being comfortable for them. Right now, the G7 summit was just happened. And Boris's father, sorry I don't have this for video for you guys. Boris's father wrote a book, Prime Minister, what the heck's Boris? I don't even watch politics because it's not even real. Point is his father actually wrote a book about eugenics and said, well, we need to get the population down to 500 million. And it's exactly the same thing that was written on the Georgia Guidestones, of course. It's the same thing that's written a lot of places. And I would like for you to know that the whistle has been blown and the deluge, I'd like you to look at what's happening right now. And you know what's happening. I'd like you to look at that as the flood. And that flood has already started, and that flood has taken millions of people. And we're never going to see them drowned because those numbers aren't even being reported right now. You're going to see in 10 years that for whatever reason, everyone had a weird heart condition. And anyone who tries to say, yeah, and they all had that condition that showed up after they took a poll, after they trusted the vaccine alone, by the way, after they were bribed and told, trust only the vaccine. This is why it's so bad, Humblescape, what you're doing. And I get you don't see it yet. This is also why I never have money, because I find people that give me money and I give them shit. Weird world, right? But this is why so many people are so afraid, Humblescape, is because they can sense how fearful you are. And in their bones, in their DNA, we know what it's like to be chased through the village. We know it. I can say something as simple as, hey, word for Lucifer in Greek means rising star. That's all it takes. And why? Because God has a name. And because there's only one solution. And if you don't do it this way, you're fucked. And all that came from the belief of soul. Of this magical pneuma that's able to come into this dry, materialistic world that's nothing but profane. And is able to fill itself just in this one space. But that dog's not a soul. Those plants aren't souls. None of that's a soul. That's inflammation about the unanimous fantasy that we call reality. And why? Because people were running through the fucking streets with their genitals tied to a stick, going, if you do not believe this, I'm going to cut you. We've come a long way. And the people in charge, we'll use that word, charge. Interesting, in charge. Wow. Oh my God. The people who have charge, right? Not in charge. The people who have charge decided a long time ago, can we stop having so many fucking witch hunters? Like seriously, that lady was nice. The herbalist, you know that herbalist that they strung up? That they said that was since she didn't say who God was and she wasn't following this or following that Messiah or doing that. Remember that? They took her on Sunday after the picnic and threw in the fire? Yeah, can we stop that? Right? And the same people that were like, all humans have equal rights. Everyone is free to do what they want. Oh, shit. All that went out the window. All that went out the window. And who could blame them? Fuck. Man. If I saw someone like that, if my favorite herbalist in town was burned at the stake because she didn't believe that the only way was Jesus, or if she didn't believe the only way was the church, they were saying the same things then, by the way. The exact same things they were saying then. I'd be looking into eugenics too. I'd be going, how the fuck do we get rid of shit like that? I don't want shit like that. I liked having herbalists here. It was a nice lady. Did you see what they did to her cats? Yeah, and they said it was holy the whole time. Look, just because she doesn't have a name for God because she finds that's insulting doesn't mean she knows what's going on. It means she embraces mystery. It means she doesn't mind being naked in a unanimous fantasy soup. And that's pantheism. It's not theism. And we can pretend that theism is an evolution, but it's not. Theism is crutches. Theism made you feel better because this place terrified the shit out of you. Because you don't want to wander around pretending like there's a technology belief running everything, but it is. If you don't think there's a technology belief running, I want you to open Instagram right now and just type the word. Just type the word vaccine. And take a picture of anything you want and see what gets magically placed underneath it. Watch what happens to anyone who tries to start a channel or say something about this. My stream about the person that I lost in my life was removed immediately because of that. This one probably will be too. By the way, we're going to stop doing YouTube. Crowdcast. And we're going to try that. They could throw us off too. That's okay. It's okay. There's thousands of ways to get the word out. And enough people want it out anyway where this thing doesn't even need me. People are waking up like mofo. It's glorious. And none of them have to call God what you want. None of them do. I hope I didn't lose you guys. I just got logged out. I bet it's still there. Anyway, did I make you guys mad? It wasn't the goal. Probably never going to get a super chat from Humble again. Although he's been pretty brave. Your opinions don't freak me out, James. See, you're entitled to have them. Entitled. No, I'm not entitled. No, I'm not entitled to have opinions. I continue to witness the gospel because I care about you and your eternity. No, you don't, Humble. You care about your eternity. I don't want eternity. I think by you insisting there's eternity is shitting on finitude. I think that you were pulling yourself off the cross by pretending that you have eternity. I do. I think that your antenna, that your frequency, your ability to see this world through the crosshairs of morality and mortality is a fucking gift. It's a fucking gift. And I get that you want to pretend, oh, well, none of this matters and body doesn't mean anything and I'm going to live forever and everything else. And all you have to do is just say that I only trust in one thing that was written down by people that I never know, that I never saw. You can't trust the gospel. You can't trust it when John rewrites the whole story because he wanted Peter to come first. Humble, I don't think you've actually read the Bible because it's so full of these beautiful little winks. God is winking at you in that scripture. It's winking at you. And even Jesus himself found this trance state frequency where he was not to be trusted. Jesus never said, trust in me. No, I get that you can say, well, he said it here, but if you keep looking, he is telling you the truth. I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. Jesus was anti-theist because Jesus became one with the animism of the world. The Spirit was him. He was the Spirit. He was God. The Son of God was the brightness that shines as a conduit. He had a direct connection. He did not need to follow a fucking person to get there. Fuck, why are you ignoring every one of his words? That not once did Jesus say, trust in John, the one who baptized me. Trust in him and him alone. Don't trust anyone else except for fucking John. That is genitals burning from a stick. Jesus told you he was God. Jesus told you he was the asynchronous connection between the two. Jesus was telling you, all of us are the radio. Each of us has our frequency, and Jesus could see frequency. The reason why Jesus healed the blind, remember the blind man that was by the well? The blind man said, "Here I am blind, I'm right by this well. But every time I try and drink, I'm unable because I'm blind." And he was begging. In Rome, in front of the busiest well, I don't know if it's the busiest, in a very, very busy area, Jesus finds him next to the well. He's made it this far, but he hasn't actually been able to make it to the well. What's he doing? He's telling people that because he's blind, he's not able to drink, but he has a cup, and he doesn't want water in it. He wants coin. And Jesus looks at him like I look at people, like you look at people. Like when you see through someone, when you know exactly who and what they're doing, you give them full witness. And that witness burns. And Jesus, which you're about to find out when we talk about John the Baptist next time, Jesus burned through that guy's victimhood and said, "You're not blind." And he used the technology of belief by taking dirt, spitting in it, and rubbing it in his eyes. And he looked at him and he said, "You are not blind." He said, "You will not profit from your victimhood. Get your ass up, wash your eyes out, and don't be blind anymore." And what did he do? Jesus dissolved that demon. Jesus dissolved the demon of victimhood that was inside of the beggar. Look up blindness. No one is truly blind who's blind. No one. All forms of blindness are actually sight. Sight. Imagine the prana economy of setting up shop as someone who was blind and who wanted to drink. I'd like you to go through the New Testament with these new eyes, and I would love for you to watch Jesus use the power of his fucking witness to remove demons from people's field because they simply could not hold the fantasy field with his witness present. His witness was so fucking sharp that none of the bullshit was able to stay in orbit. And these people healed themselves because of the shame they felt from faking it. And you may call that sacrilegious, but I don't. I call that beautiful, beautiful psychiatric jujitsu, psychological jujitsu, whatever you want to call it. That is some badass fucking sensei motherfuckers. That is how you own that space. Jesus owned his energy bubble, and in his fantasy bubble, he says, no, everything is God, and there will only be gold inside of this vibration. You there, you were not blind, and you were in my vibration. My vibration is so strong, you're going to drop the bullshit. You're going to find a better prana economy. And that blind man did. What was that blind man's prana economy? He became someone that went around saying, Jesus is God. He healed me. He's the Son of God. He's the Messiah. He healed me. Yeah, I used to be blind. Why? Because he cannot admit to everyone that he was faking it. He can't. Do you know how much electricity it would take to admit that? Think about someone who pretends they have cancer. Think about someone who pretends they were beaten by their husband. Think about someone who pretends they were beat by their wife. Fuck. It's all around. You're looking at a prana economy that's affordable for somebody. What happens later? That same blind man meets Jesus again. And Jesus knows that his new prana economy is he's telling everybody that Jesus is the Son of God and Jesus healed him. And so what does Jesus do? He looks him right in the fucking eye, pierces through him, and he goes, you will not sin again. It was a correction, and that was part of Jesus starting to notice, holy fuck, these people, they're not getting it. They're not. And Jesus saw the stone throwing. He saw the propensity of the torches. He saw what was coming because of the clarity of his witness. Now, I'm going to stop now because I need to explain to you John the Baptist. And when I explain that to you, it'll make sense why Jesus went on the cross. It'll make sense. But it's going to make you uncomfortable. All of this is. And I want you, if you don't believe me, to look up what theism truly is. The reason why people like, what's that guy's name? Oh, God. Anyway, the reason why so many Christian scholars can't discuss religion with me is because of this theism issue. That this difference between profane and divine is so bad, guys. That this blanket idea of the materialism casting everything into this dark profane light is a cosmology. I'm not even saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's a cosmology. And that frequency is an AM band frequency. That the clarity of the music that's coming through is going to require FM. That's why on the AM band you don't hear music too much, and when you do it sounds like shit. Why? Because those waves are so slow they can't carry the clarity of an FM signal. Same with 5G. The higher up you go, right? 2.4 gigahertz is right what your Wi-Fi router is now. More information in that signal. More clear information in that signal. Anyway, we'll be talking about this. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If I offended anyone, it's not my goal. It's not. If I brought you closer to God, I hope so. I believe we are living in a unanimous fantasy. And I mean fantasy in a beautiful way. By the way, when you look at this context, you start to see why Disney is so helpful. I realize that you're like, James, holy shit, because some of you probably came from that world where it's like, well, you could even still be there, where you're like, well, Disney is so full of sexual this or satanic this or this or that or that. And I want you to know that if you could put on these different goggles, these best apocalypse ever goggles, you would find that what Disney was doing was a collecting of guns program. That they're wandering around saying, hey, if anyone wants to turn in your guns for basketballs, you can. And a bunch of people were like, please take my guns. That the belief in magic itself scares people so much. And I don't mean to say that Humble is scared, but it's that kind of thinking where trust has to be outside of yourself, not inside yourself. You have to trust something outside of yourself, which just tears you apart. It just turns you inside out. That's all it does. And that Disney allows those who want that. Guys, people want to give up their guns, and it's not wrong for you to believe that or to let them. That you need to realize that the responsibility of owning a gun is scary, and we only want people with guns who accept the responsibility. And so I'd like you to look at Disney as a giant collector for people that don't want magic. That Disney does such a good job of covering it and glitter and ketchup that people are able to go, oh, okay, it's not magic, it's just Disney. And that's a huge favor to you. Yeah, it's a huge favor. They also know that parents watch Disney. They want parents to watch Disney with their kids. And Disney, this is so fucking weird that I'm saying this, that Disney is giving a frequency that's encrypted above the children. that Disney is winking at you by putting sex in the clouds. They're winking at you. They're like, look, I know it's My Little Pony. I get it. It's got to be boring as fuck. Hey, here's a phallus. Did you catch that? You know your kid's not. Look at what your kid's doing. He's watching the, he's picking his nose right now. But you saw it, didn't you? Man, take off the old glasses. You can put them back on. You can. They serve you. Keep them. But I'm asking you, as your yoga instructor, to just try this other pose. You'll fucking cry your eyes out as soon as your hip hurts right. But sit there for 3 or 4 minutes. Let that stuff drain out. And man, it's a whole new world. All right, guys. Have a good one. Have a wonderful day. And thank you for watching. Let's take it out to the outro.